Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm very happy to have everybody here, and excited to introduce you to our graduate taught programs at the UCD School of Philosophy. So let me just get started. I guess um, it is a really fun and interesting program. So I have a lot to try to get through. And I'll try to introduce each of our program briefly, each of our different programs a little bit briefly. But first off, I can give you a little bit of an insight into what the UCD School of Philosophy is. To boast about our ability, in a way, we are ranked number one for philosophy in Ireland, and we are on the 100 top global list in the QS ranking. We're the largest school of philosophy on the island of Ireland. So it's a vibrant, big community of people who do lots and lots of different types of things. There are many active research projects in a large variety of different subdisciplines within philosophy. We do analytic philosophy, continental philosophy, history of philosophy, phenomenology. So there's a wide spectrum of interest that is represented here, which can be both overwhelming, but also great to have a lot of choice and a lot of activity. Um, it's also important, I feel like, to mention that our graduate community is very big and growing and very active and does lots of different things. Just to mention a few of those things, there is a work in progress meeting that they do. We have a minority and philosophy chapter, which has a lot of activity. We have reading groups, coffee mornings. We even have our own postgraduate journal, Perspective, which is great. Publishes the annually is supposed to be the idea, and it usually works out. It's a great project, and all throughout the academic year, we have conferences, workshops, and visiting speakers, and it's very lively and vibrant. So the community here is absolutely amazing. You would be joining in on a great community, I think. It's also a very pluralistic school. As I already said, we represent lots of different interests within philosophy, and much of it is very interdisciplinary as well. And I'll get to that when I talk about the different programs. And all of this is very well represented in our taught MA programs. Every year, we try to offer something like 12 to 16 modules, and we try to organize those in a coherent and cohesive way to represent a pluralistic sort of framework or agenda for students to choose from. Um, so we also have, as I've indicated, a range of different types of programs. We have two programs that we might call like pure philosophy programs, and then we have a bunch of others that are much more interdisciplinary. And I'll spend most of my time just giving you a kind of glimpse into each one. But before I do that, I always like to use the opportunity, since I happen to think there is a lot of value in studying philosophy, but it's often, difficult to express that and explain that to a range of different audiences. So I'd like to just first say a few things about why you might do philosophy in general, why you might do philosophy at a graduate level, and maybe that means you might want to do philosophy at UCD, which I think is a terrific thing to do. Um, there are, in fact, many good reasons to study philosophy. There are too many to mention in such a short webinar, but as I said, I'll mention a few here. Philosophy is, to my mind, the perfect discipline to develop skills of independent critical thinking. And it's uniquely positioned, I think, to allow for a large variety of different interests in different topics, questions, and approaches. There is, in fact, philosophy for everything. There is philosophy of biology, there is philosophy of physics, philosophy in literature, philosophy of psychology, philosophy of language, which is my particular discipline or subdiscipline. And philosophy is in this way highly integrated with different scientific and humanistic disciplines and allows students to approach those disciplines while keeping their attention, I think, on the bigger picture and the bigger questions. These original questions we all have about why we are here, what's the difference between good and bad or right and wrong, and how does human psychology or human thought actually work? Uh, the second thing I wanted to mention is basically that the skills that you acquire from a philosophy education are, in fact, incredibly useful, practical, and sought after in many areas of working life, in journalism, research of any kind, teaching, but also in things like administration, advertising, public jobs in the civil service, many, many jobs in the tech industry. And there's growing evidence that I've seen myself that workers who specialize in philosophy tend to earn higher wages late in their careers, even if they tend to sometimes start off at the lower end, especially if we're talking about people who have earned a graduate degree in the discipline. So that's interesting evidence. The final thing I'll mention, which I often think is interesting to think about, is that there is a lot of evidence that people who major in philosophy do better than most others in all sorts of standardized tests. So the LSAT, for example, is an entrance exam for law school in the US, and philosophy majors receive the highest scores, and they've done so consistently over decades, actually. The GRE is something I took when I applied for graduate school in the US a long time ago, and it's used to assess students applying for graduate school. And it has sections on verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and analytical writing. And that's another interesting case where philosophy majors receive the highest average mark out of the three sections combined. And I just like to mention this because I think this is very strong evidence that studying philosophy can boost your academic abilities quite substantially. If you want to look further into factoids of this general kind, I have a website there from dailynews.com /value of philosophy, but you can find information about this very widely. So the next thing I wanted to do was just give you maybe, and you'll feel free to ask questions at the end, but I thought would be a good idea to give you some idea about the range of options that we have. Fortunately, we have lots and lots of different programs, which we're very proud of. As I said, we can classify those into two broad groups. One group is what we call pure philosophy MA programs. This is the MA General in Philosophy and the MA in Contemporary European Philosophy. And then we have a long list of interdisciplinary programs. So what you do in general, it's slightly different in each case, is that you take 90 credits, 60 credits in some taught modules. This is usually 6 MA modules, but it can vary for lots of reasons that I'll manage to get into a little bit. And then there is a thesis, which is 30 credits, which you turn in at the end of the summer, and you write it under supervision by one of the faculty members. That's a very big part of the degree. So let me explain very briefly each of these programs because they have different types of structures. So here's the pure philosophy program, which is just general philosophy. This is the most flexible one, maybe the most common one for philosophy majors to take. And it can be taken in 1 year full-time or 2 years part-time. And basically what you do is you take 6 modules and you have a flexibility to determine your own sort of independent direction and specialization within philosophy more particularly. And here I've listed a few examples of modules that have normally normally been on offer. Philosophy of time. I teach topics in philosophy of language, for example, and I have colleagues teaching Kant, feminist philosophy. There is a module called The Good Society, but this varies somewhat between years. But that's a good idea about what roughly will be on offer. The other pure philosophy program is the one we call MA in Contemporary European Philosophy. It's very similar, but the thing is, to get that name on your degree, you just take two core modules in one of the following topics: German idealism, phenomenology, critical theory, and these will be modules where topics involve things like intersubjectivity, embodiment, otherness, crisis and critique of ideology, things that are prevalent, especially within contemporary European philosophy. The rest of your modules can be chosen freely from our philosophy offerings for the year. So this is very similar. But then we have, as I said, sorry, the slide is slightly off. Should be fine. I don't know why that happened. But our first interdisciplinary um, program is the MA in Philosophy of Mind and Embodied Cognition. The idea here is that you take 2 to 5 philosophy modules that you can choose on your own, and you take one core module. The core module is called Topics in Philosophy of Mind and Cognition. And then you can take up to 6, between 0 and 6 modules from cognitive science. And within that structure, you can take up to 2 introductory modules from a specific list, meaning they are specifically determined from the undergraduate curriculum, such that if you need some more background in that particular discipline, which could be boosting your philosophy background, for example, in a certain way, you can take those, and that can earn credits to your degree. The next one I wanted to mention is the MSc in Cognitive Science. We've been ramping up and actually developing this program very recently. So this is a new addition. It used to be shared between philosophy and computer science. Now it's basically within philosophy, but it's the same degree essentially. We've been working on the structure a little bit. The way it looks now, or the way it will look in the future, is that students take one core module. It's called Foundations of Cognitive Science. And then there's a list of 2 to 6 foundational modules. And then you can take either none or 2 introductory options, which is similar to the mind structure. And just to give an example here, sometimes we have people doing cognitive science who haven't had much or almost any background within philosophy, and that can be a good case sometimes for them then to take an introductory module in philosophy to be able to continue with their studies. And here are some examples. Options would be, even things like logic or knowledge and skepticism, which is a second year module that we have in undergrad. The foundational modules can vary quite a bit, but we have things like cognitive linguistics within linguistics. So this is a very interdisciplinary program because we share modules between many different schools within UCD. So it's a great program. We're very proud of it. Then we have a few others. They're all unique and interesting. The next one I wanted to mention is the MA in Ethics, Theory, and Practice. This is a program where you get to explore ethical issues in areas such as government, healthcare, business, agriculture, planning, education, law. The list goes on. And it gives you an opportunity to develop a theoretical understanding of ethics and its place in human life more generally. So it can be a very practical degree, but you can do lots of different things with it. The next one is a very popular program, I must say, because it's not the case that there are very many departments of philosophy that offer this kind of degree, but we are, I think, uniquely positioned because of the people on our faculty to offer this great degree. It's an MA in philosophy and literature, and it's designed to offer graduates of either philosophy or literature the opportunity to study, the many areas of overlap that exist between these two disciplines. Um, and you get a chance to also choose options from English, languages, classics, or also Irish. Um, I guess it is worth mentioning here that we do want applicants to have some degree of familiarity with both of these disciplines, but it's very good for people who have, majored in one but still have some interest, at least, and some background in the other discipline. That's usually the ideal application we get. Then there is the MA in Philosophy and Public Affairs. It's designed to offer graduates of either philosophy or the social sciences, for example, politics, economics, history, an opportunity to study some of the many areas of overlap, again, between these disciplines. Do it in a sort of philosophically foundational way. Um, and we have a lot of interested students in this area, and many of them, have a background in public policy, and they all say this is very useful, practically speaking. So that's very interesting. I also wanted to mention that we have a few other programs. We also have a higher diploma in arts, and there you take 2 years at the undergraduate level and get a diploma. You can also use this as a so-called conversion degree to go into the MA program. So some students use this if they don't have sufficient background within philosophy. They can do the higher diploma and convert that into an application, basically, which usually is successful, to do the MA with us. And also, it's worth mentioning that it's also possible to do a graduate diploma in some of those other programs that I just mentioned. That just means you do the taught component, but you don't turn in the dissertation at the end. That's all for the sort of general overview of what we have to offer. I could say many more things about each of these, but I thought it would be best to give others opportunity to introduce themselves and to get some questions from the people in the crowd. Thank you. Here's just an email you can send questions to if you have questions later on as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Omar. That was great, really interesting. So now we're going to hear from a current student on the program. So Tori, I believe you're doing the MA in philosophy. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience so far?
Yeah, of course. My name is Tori, and I'm doing the MA in Pure Philosophy. Prior to starting this program, I had spent a couple years traveling and working because I graduated from my undergraduate university in 2021. But my last job was in a university library, and it made me really miss being a student and learning and kind of being academically challenged. So, in my search for graduate programs, kind of broadly, I liked the idea of living outside the US because I am from California. And also the idea of maybe doing some traveling while I was in school. But specifically, UCD has a really interesting philosophy program with the options to study continental philosophy, which is not offered everywhere. Some of the courses that caught my attention and that I have taken are the philosophy and literature course, topics in continental philosophy, feminist and gender theory, and this past semester, Elmar taught a course on authenticity and implicit attitudes, which I really enjoyed. Something I have also enjoyed about the program as a whole is the amount of events and activities we have in the department. Faculty organizes some kind of guest lecture pretty often. Like I would say at least once a month, we have some kind of visiting speaker talking about an array of topics. And we also have a lot of student-led events. Elmar kind of talked about this a little bit, but we do have a weekly work in progress meeting where someone kind of comes in, like a student. They give a presentation on some part of their project that they're working on, and that's followed by a discussion. There also are the MAP events, the minority and philosophy chapter events, like social coffee afternoons once a month or so. I am a MAP chair, and this semester I'm doing a reading group on women and love. There also are other events. Last week, somebody put on a minorities and AI workshop, and this coming week, we have another person putting on an open academia workshop about different obstacles and how to build community in academia, which I think is very interesting. And I like these events because they are all student-led, which means that all the activities that we're doing directly reflect our interests. And it also means that if any of you have an idea for an event or something that you are curious about, there is a lot of student and faculty support to help make that happen. As far as my career goals, I'm hoping that these kind of event planning and leadership and instructive experiences that I'm having will help me uh, find and do well in a job. After graduating, my plans are to travel for the rest of summer and then probably go back to the US and get a corporate job, um, which I think I could very easily do well in with the academic rigor that I have experienced throughout this program, but also in my undergrad, because I also did a bachelor's in philosophy. Um, my advice for any international student interested in the program, I have two pieces of advice. The first is to make sure that you have your finances in order. There are a lot of scholarship opportunities, so I would really look into those options. But it is expensive to live in Dublin, and as a student, I would want to be involved and not necessarily prioritize working while you are a student. So I would try to make sure that you are at least applying to scholarships. And my second piece of advice is to really take initiative when you arrive and get involved in the department. That's how you're going to be making friends. That's how you're going to be networking or socializing or really making the most of the experience. Hannah and I have both really kind of inserted ourselves into leadership roles. And as a result of that, I think it has improved both of our experiences a lot. And yeah, it just allows you to pursue your interests in a way that you maybe wouldn't be able to if you were too afraid to put yourself out there. So,
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great advice as well. Thank you so much, Tori. And now, Hannah, I believe you're doing the MA in philosophy and literature. Is that correct?
Yeah, my name's Hannah. I am doing the philosophy and literature program, and I chose UCD. Elmar mentioned that the program is unique, and that is absolutely true. I'm from Canada, and there was nothing in Canada like this. It's very much just philosophy or English, but I wanted both, and UCD provided. Um, what I enjoy most about this program specifically is you have to take, I think Elmar mentioned, but you take three philosophy modules and three English modules, and it's interesting how you see them um, overlap in ways that you don't expect. Like I'm taking a Ulysses course right now, and there's so much philosophy within that. Um, so that's really fun. Um, and outside of the academic aspect of the degree, as Tori was mentioning, the community at UCD is spectacular. All the professors are always open to talking about anything in like the hallway. We can like draw them into conversation. Um, and the students, again, as Tori said, are very proactive, and the whips, the work in progress in particular, I think is a really great thing that we do. It's run by graduate students for the graduate students, and they bring a piece of their thesis, or if they're speaking at a conference, and it can either be like the presentation is completely done, or they can come with like 4 bullet points, and then we talk for 40 minutes, and everybody always walks away having gained something, and I love that. Yeah. As for career paths where I want to go after this, I chose this program because I have too. I would like to be either in academia or in academic publishing, which is also why the philosophy and literature made sense for me. I was in publishing beforehand, but I want to be in a different type of publishing moving forward. And I think that this really helps. And an extracurricular, the Perspectives Journal. I'm one of the editors for Perspectives, and that will help me also in my career. So there's a lot of opportunity outside of the academics in this degree that will aid you moving forward if you are proactive, I think, and take initiative to really insert yourself in there. And advice that I have for you, I keep saying also like Tori, I graduated in 2021 and I took a few years to really figure out what I wanted to do. I think that the students that feel the most, that get the most out of this program are the ones that didn't necessarily come into it just because it was like, I don't know what I want to do, so I guess I'll do more school. I think that it's important to really be sure that this is what you want, because when you know that, I think you're able to better take the opportunities that are presented to you because you've already thought about what you want, and so you can recognize what UCD and programs like this can do for you.
Brilliant.
And yes, Dublin is also expensive. So
How about the campus, Hannah? How do you find the campus facilities?
I think the campus facilities are great. I bike everywhere, and the campus is, if you have a bike, I'm going to spread bike propaganda. If you have a bike, this campus is very accessible and you can get around everywhere. You hop on your bike from the Newman Center and you're at the sports facility in 1 minute. Students are always sitting around when the sun is out. Students are always sitting everywhere in the grass. It's a beautiful campus. The library is fantastic. Yeah, that was kind of disjointed, but it's great.
No, that's perfect. Thanks so much, Hannah. More great advice. So that's really, really helpful. So next, I'm just going to speak very briefly about some of the career kind of supports that we offer in UCD. So 1 second now, and I'll try and share my screen, which doesn't seem to want to work. Here we go. Okay, so I know for a lot of you, whether you're Irish, you're in the EU or non-EU, choosing to come back and study at master's level, it's an investment. It's your time and it's your money. So you kind of want to make sure that it is a step in the right direction in your future. And I think all the speakers so far have really kind of explained that and attested to that very well. But just for any of you that are not from EU countries, working in Ireland. So when you graduate, you get a stay back visa if you wish. So that means you can work in Ireland for 24 months, so 2 years. And after that, hopefully you might be in a role where if you want to remain in Ireland, in an organisation that will sponsor you to stay for longer. Once you've been working for 5 years, you are eligible to apply for permanent residency then. So that 2 years stay back visa, the graduate visa, that counts towards your 5 years towards permanent residency. UCD itself, we are ranked number 1 for employability in Ireland and the top 100 in the world. I did a quick Google, so apparently there's an average about 50,000 universities in the world. So to be in the top 100 is pretty good for employability. In Ireland itself, our unemployment rate is low, so it's 4.6% at the moment. And if we look at the average EU rate, it would be 5.1. So it is a good place to work if you want to afterwards. Some of you might be sick of hearing that Dublin is, the European Silicon Valley, but there is a lot of multinationals here, and it's in not just tech, but pharma, medtech, AI, financial services. And, there is a really positive, even if you didn't want to work in one of those companies, there is a real knock-on effect. So, the environment is great for successful SMEs. There's a really positive trickle-down effect across all sectors, so it does have a real open a lot of doors for people, even if you don't want to work in those industries. In UCD, we have the UCD Careers Network, and I'd really advise you to connect with them. If you do come to UCD, but as soon as you hit the campus, because they really do support you in all aspects of the next step in your career. So there's recruitment fairs, so an opportunity to network with different organizations. There's support with your CV and interview prep. There's a jobs platform where they advertise roles, and also there's different seminars on career development. You can also have a one-to-one career appointment as well, which really helps, especially if you're going into something a little bit different or you're in a new country as well. There's alumni career panel events and then skills and careers workshops. So I really would encourage you to link in with them, even just follow them on social media so you can see what's coming up and if it's something you'd like to be part of. And for those non-EU students as well, or not just actually any international students, EU or non-EU, we have a program called Jumpstart, and that's specifically for international students. It just is really to help you get familiar with the Irish recruitment landscape and kind of understand how that works, skills that Irish employers are looking for, kind of how interviews work as well. So it's just another great resource that I would encourage you to use. And then just finally, I know Elmar spoke about this already. It's very interesting to hear that, the LSAT highest scorers are philosophy graduates and the practical skills as well from philosophy that really kind of, translates to roles in across such a wide variety of sectors. And we're seeing that grow and grow even more. So that's just where some of our recent graduates have gone from public to private sector, marketing, advertising, media, recruitment, publishing, policy, education, politics, law, journalism, research, and then there's those that just never want to leave university and they do a PhD. So there's really lots of opportunities. So I just wanted to give you a little flavor of that support that's there for you when you join UCD. So what we'll do now is we will move on to the Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A box. I know some of you were very organized and submitted questions before, so we can start with that. So I'll just ask the questions to the whole panel so everybody can jump in and answer. So the first one here is, could you elaborate on the process and timeline for assigning MA thesis supervisors?
Yeah, I suspect this is maybe for me. Yeah, I could talk about this in quite some detail, but I'll give you some idea about how it's supposed to work. We welcome students from the very first day, and we explain the process to them that they're supposed to take their modules, but at the very same time, they're also supposed to start preparing for the dissertation. And we have a quite organized schedule for this, where we have sessions where students are supposed to meet with faculty members and start, learning how to prepare a thesis, write a thesis, and research a thesis. And at least within the first 4 months or so, we want students to have interacted with faculty members well enough to have gotten some idea about whom they might want to work with. And we encourage them to have meetings with faculty members as much as possible and start exploring options. And then you submit a proposal in February, late February, and you're supposed to give so you're supposed to name a potential advisor or supervisor in that proposal. And most of the time, the students, they have engaged with that person already. They've had a few discussions about what they want to write about, and they put their name in the proposal, and that's how it will work out. Some of the times, some member faculty is a little bit too popular or whatnot. Somebody might be on sabbatical. There are things that come up. So sometimes some students don't get exactly the advisor that they propose, but then one of my coordinating tasks is to work on the basis of that and find other advisors for the students. And so we work like that, and in the end, you are in a one-to-one relationship, sort of with that advisor. and that has a certain structure. You're supposed to meet at specific times and submit a chapter before a certain deadline, and then you submit the full thesis at the end of the summer. That's the idea.
Brilliant. And just another one, just slightly on the thesis as well. And if taking the part-time option, in what way are the 6 modules and thesis spread over the 2 years?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think there are a range of options there. You are supposed to spread the credits evenly across the two years, and then you submit a thesis in the summer, like after the 2 years. And there is some flexibility then in the way in which you do that, but there's a difficulty in answering it for older programs because the programs have different structures. So you're supposed to do, a core module for some of them, for some of them you don't. So the extent to which it's flexible is different actually a little bit. And it can also become a little bit complicated because sometimes there is more variation in terms of what we're offering than at other times. So you might have your first year expecting to be able to take something in the second year and waiting until the second year in your part-time degree, but that might not be possible for all sorts of reasons. But roughly that's the way it works. You do a half-time graduate taught element, and then you write the thesis a year later than everybody else. That's the idea.
Okay, great. And another one here, do you have much freedom in your selection of MA thesis topic? Does it have to perfectly align with the faculty interests?
That's a great question. Maybe Hannah and Tori are willing to chime in on this, but the idea is that you have a lot of flexibility within, of course, reasonable limits. Whatever you want to propose, we will hear you out, and we will make an effort to find somebody who considers themselves an expert in that area. And even if that kind of person doesn't exist within philosophy, we might look elsewhere. So we make every effort to accommodate even weird topics and proposals. But most of the times, as I indicated before, we have a very big faculty actually, and the interests are very wide ranging. So it isn't normally a big issue to find somebody who's suitable. Although it sometimes is an effort to coordinate in the sense that the student often maybe thinks they know what they want to write about, but it turns out to be, part of the project to find out exactly what it is. So there's a kind of cooperative activity there, coordination that we need to start off normally. So normally this isn't an issue. I remember one case where we sort of in the end had to say, well, we can't really accept that topic. We don't have anyone, and we're not clear exactly what it is, but it doesn't normally happen that way.
Great. And do Hannah or Tori want to chime in with anything there or your experience?
Yeah, just really briefly. I came into UCD kind of having an idea of what project I wanted to work on. And after talking to a few different professors in meetings where I presented to them my kind of vague idea and told them how I thought my idea related to their interests, they offered me different kind of resources, different articles. And I think based on your advisor, by accepting their advice, you are already allowing them to influence you in a certain way. But if you have a vague idea, talking to different people and getting their advice is a good thing. I don't think anybody this year, anyway, has had a professor tell them, like, this idea is like not good or not suitable to me. You're laughing, Hannah, but do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. With the professor that I'm working with, a lot of my ideas align directly with her, but there's one aspect of it that she doesn't know anything about. And so she said to my face, she's like, I know nothing about this. This bit is completely on you. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like most of what I'm doing is almost perfectly in line with stuff that she's doing now and has done before. So yeah,
Oh, you're muted.
I think you're muted. Yeah.
So I think we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So, how do I move from a broad theoretical interest to a focused research question?
Well, I think Tori sort of answered that exact question right now. Like, what we're offering is a framework for people to do exactly that. The best way to enter into an MA program in philosophy is exactly with a vague idea about what you really want to do, and a sense that you can't really figure out how to make that more precise on your own. So that's the ideal situation. And you show up and you take a few modules, you acquire a sense of which people in the faculty you're willing to sort of engage with, which is normally all of them, and who has time for your quirky ideas at that moment in time, and who is a little bit too busy with teaching or whatever. And as soon as you've talked to two or three of them a few times and just pitched the idea or something, either you'll come up with something different, or you'll make it more precise, or you realize that your interests are different from what you thought they were. Like all sorts of things can happen, but they're all part of this organic process that is wonderful to be a part of, actually. Like that's the whole point. So yeah, yeah. But I could talk about that for a long time. There are different ways to take the question, but I would start off with saying this at least. Yeah,
Can I
Hannah.
add one thing to that? I think that coming in with an idea, like a loose idea, is extremely important, but also don't be glued to it. I think that you need to be open to it being changed. Um, yeah, that's kind of it. Because I also came in, like Tori, I came in with an idea of what I want, but within taking my modules, even that's just this past semester, um, in and with the Nietzsche course, which I didn't think would relate to my idea at all. It's like, oh, I've completely, like, my idea, the foundation of it has now completely changed. It's still the same idea, but like, yeah, just be open to your ideas changing.
Yeah,
You'll learn a
Very
few
good.
things
I
here.
agree. Yeah, of course. That's
more
very
great
nice,
advice
Hannah.
from Hannah.
Yeah.
So we have maybe we're running out of time, but let's see if we can get this one done. And this is for you, Elmar. Could you talk more about the restructuring of the cognitive science program? This person was under the assumption that you were able to dabble in courses from computer science as well.
Yes. I'm not sure exactly what to say. The structure I gave you is the one that is in place now. What I was indicating is that it's only very recently been put in place the way it is. You are able to dabble in computer science, absolutely, or dabble. You're able to take a number of computer science modules as a component part of the cognitive science degree, if that's the main concern. It's a highly disciplinary, interdisciplinary degree, and one of the components is computer science. Another, we're also starting to interact a little bit more than before with psychology and linguistics. And so the idea is that it becomes even more interdisciplinary. In the past, it was basically a little bit more of a computer science degree than it will maybe be tomorrow, but that doesn't change very much because there's still a very big computer science program here and a lot of options, really good people working there, and so that's definitely a good component to have. Yeah.
I think we can squeeze one last question in because I think the answer will be quite short. Somebody's wondering what are the numbers of students per program,
Per program, okay.
roughly?
Yeah, every year we get I'm hoping something like 20 to 25 students. Of course, it can vary quite a lot. We've been very happy with the numbers recently. And for each program, for the bigger ones, like the general program and the philosophy and literature and I guess and maybe cognitive science, you might get maybe around 5 or 6 people. Cognitive science usually has a little bit more. We've sometimes had up to 12. It gets more applications, but as I'm saying, we're sort of now in charge of the applications. That's a new thing, so that has an effect. But so that means a lot of people are also spread out in smaller numbers in our other programs. But I hope that Tori and Hannah will agree. It doesn't. This does not silo people into different, divisions within the school or anything. It's all one big program. You're all doing modules together, and you are all a community. So it doesn't really matter that much how many people are in each
Mm.
program. It's all within philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the person asking the question was worried that the numbers might be really, really big and they might get a little bit lost in the school, but it's not that case. It's a nice kind of small school where everyone's kind of engaging and interacting with each other. That's
Yes.
brilliant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I'll just hand over to Elmar for the final remarks.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us. And all I can say is I hope to welcome you everyone at UCD when you join us. It's a wonderful place to be. I'm very happy here, and it's nice to have these two students with us to prove it.